Alright, so we got our 6 simple machines here. We got a screw, we've got an inclined plane, we've got a wheel and axle, we've got a wedge going into a lever, and then we have a pulley system attached to a lever. And these are basic and very rudimentary, but we're going to see how many of these we can squeeze into our box. So the main thing is I'm going to cut a bunch of these strips to size to start. So I'm just going to go grab them. We got them in a stock box. And then we'll start making some of the other stuff, probably starting with some inclined planes and some levers. So I'm just going to make those up quick, and then we'll do screw, wedge, pulley, and other setups. All right, so I got all the strips down here in the box. Let's just grab a couple of them and go to work. I'm just going to cut out what I need over on the Blade Runner. All right, so over here on the Blade Runner, I'm just going to cut a bunch of these strips to the same length. So I've got them kind of set up. I'm going to cut like 5-inch lengths and 6-inch lengths. I'm going to turn the mic down now because it's going to get loud. And what I wind up with here is just a couple of piles. I'm going to turn these all into inclined planes or levers probably, but I got a lot of extra scrap pieces to work with. So I just did that to begin my prep. All right, so over here I'm going to work on making my inclined plane. Let's zoom down a little. The inclined plane is simple. I'm just going to take 2 of these scraps of wood that are the same size, and I am going to put hot glue very carefully onto one piece. And I'm just going to glue the other piece onto the side of it. And that's it. This is an inclined plane. I will then glue this scrap of inclined plane into my project. Okay, so the levers are pretty much the same thing as the inclined planes. I just need to do a little editing on them. And that little bit of editing is, one, they're each going to have a dowel. So I'm going to cut 2 dowels right now for my levers with these easy cutters. Actually, I'm going to cut a 3rd dowel because later I'm going to use it for my wheel and axle. So there's 2 dowels and a 3rd. And all of these are going to be is basically they're going to start off the same way you did for your inclined plane. You're just going to glue it up and put the other piece on the side. And then I'm actually going to do these on different sides now. So basically what you got to do is you got to take this dowel and you've got to glue it on there. So I'm going to put a healthy dose of hot glue on here. And then what I like to do is I like to take one of my smaller pieces here, and I actually like to add it to the side for some added support underneath. So let's see, a piece that's about the right size. I'm going to go right here. So this is the lever, and this might be the one that gets the wedge, and it might be the one that gets the pulley. And the last thing I got to do is I got to put a back piece. So the back piece is just going to get glued on here in the back, like so, and stick it on there. So that is one inclined plane, and it'll just sit flush against the wall. We'll drill a hole for it, and it'll pivot. If I'm going to be the one that does not use the pulley, it is done. If it's going to be the one that uses the pulley, we're going to attach some string. So I'm going to build that one now. I'm just going to have that one going the other direction. So same deal. So one, glue this up like so. Put my little back piece for support here. 1, 2. All right. I want this one going the other way, so it's actually going to go on this side. All right. I got that like so. I'm going to glue this right onto here. Healthy amount of glue. I'm going to put a little bit of support on this side. Now, with the pulley, I'm going to use string, and I'm just going to get a liberal amount of string here. I got some string. I'm going to cut it. Like I said, liberal amount. And I am just going to take this string on this end here, and I'm just going to glue it down. I said a liberal amount of string and glue, and we're going to glue it down like so. And I can go back and cut this extra off, but this is going to be the pulling action we're looking for. Get that pulling up front. I might even put a little glue up front, but I think I'm probably going to come and just trim this off or go to the sander and cut that down in a minute. Okay, and it'd probably be best to have a piece that's exactly the right size, which is what I would suggest you do, but I'm just trying to do this quickly. So there's my pulley one. So I got a lever for the pulley, and then I got another lever. And these both happen to be going in the same direction, so I'm going to have to incorporate for that in my design. All right. All right. For the wheel and axle, and I might actually use this piece for the wedge too. Yeah, I've got enough. So for the wheel and axle and the wedge, we are going to just find scrap wood basically, and I'm going to draw a circle here. This is a pretty big circle. I don't know how that'll fit in the project, so I might actually consider making it a wee bit smaller, try to get more room. It is harder to cut as it gets smaller, but we are in limited space, so I'm going to go with this right here, a 2.5-inch circle. I'm marking off all of these points here to find the center later, which I can do with a straight edge. So this is going to be the center of my circle, so I know where to drill my center hole. All right, so there's my circle. What I'm going to do is, before I drill it, I'm just going to put a hole kind of right here, and that'll be my wheel and axle. I could actually put multiple if I wanted, but I'm just going to go with one. And to do that, I'm just going to use a regular 3/4 inch drill bit. I've got it set up here. I'm going to use the hand drill, and I'm just going to drill in through this. All right, and then when you don't have a dead battery, it should go a little better, and this will be for the center hole. Now notice I do all the drilling before I do any cutting. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to go over to the blade runner, and we're just going to cut this out on the blade runner. All right, over here at the blade runner, I'm just going to adjust my blade height, and then off to the races. You could also, if you wanted, you could drop it in the actual hole, but I don't feel like that's necessary. All right, so I want to finish up my wheel and axle here, and it's a pretty simple task. I'm going to put a little glue in the hole. I'm going to put a dowel in the hole. Make sure the glue and the dowel are all matched up, and then I just got to kind of grab a little piece of wood here, and I'm just going to put this to block right here. So I'm just going to go right here, and what we want to do ideally with this is just there to kind of catch the gumball, so it will rest right there. Okay? All right. Alrighty. Okay, so to do the screw, we're going to need a piece of sheet metal, like so. And the first thing we're going to do is, I've got this little jig here, and we use it to mark our sheet metal. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to mark the sheet metal on both sides. So 1 and 2. And as you can see, I've got 2 grooves there, and we're going to go over to the metal brake, and we're going to bend on these 2 grooves. All right, so let's go do that. All right, so over here on the metal brake, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clamp my work down right on the edge. All right, I'm going to get another shot here real quick. As you can see, I'm closing right on that edge, so that closes it down. So once we're closed down, I'm just going to take the handles, I'm going to raise it up about 90 degrees. I will unclamp it. So that gives us a 90-degree bend on here. Alright, notice for the next step I'm at the garbage can. And I'm going to use one of these tools right here, which is a notching tool. And all you do for the notching tool is you slide it all the way in, and that's the key. It's got to go all the way in up to that edge. And we squeeze and notch, and you see it falls off. And we want to do this over the garbage can, so these little pieces of metal, I'll just cut one quick. So these little pieces of metal here, these ones that fall off, they go right in the garbage because they are very sharp and pointy. So we're going to do that right over the garbage can. And what you do is, when you're doing this, you want to make sure you have equal spacing. So equal spacing, I use this little piece of metal right here next to the notch, and that gives you equal spacing. So that's what I use to lay it out equally. Now I'm going to speed through this. You need about 13 to get a full rotation. Alright, so I've got all my notches here. I have to go back to the bending brake, and we're going to bend against this line. Alright, back here at the bending brake, just like before, I slide it right in here. I put it on the line. So right on the line here, and I bend. So there we go. And now you got to make some decisions. Alright, so the last decision we have to make here is how we want to bend it. Do we want to bend this side on the top or this side on the top? It doesn't really matter which side you decide to bend. You just kind of go through the process here. And one side will just be the top and one side will be the bottom. And from here, you know, got a little flex to go. Depends how you want to put it into your machine. This is the process of making the screw. Alright, so I'm just going to grab another piece of scrap wood here, and I'm just going to make a wedge out of it. And what I'm going to do for the wedge is, first I'm going to just draw out where I want my wedge to be, and I'm going to need a hole going in somewhere about here. So a good thing to do is probably before you cut it, to go clamp it in the vise and drill that hole. So let's go do that. Okay, so I'm over here at the vise. I'm going to just open the vise up. I'm going to drop my wood in there. Clamped in nice and firmly. I'm going to adjust the camera up just a little, and we'll use the drill bit right about where I said. I'm just going to drill a little hole. And that should be sufficient. I'll now go over to the blade runner. I'm just going to cut along that line. Alright, so I'm at the blade runner here, and let's cut along this line. Alright, and that'll be our wedge. I just got to glue a piece in here. Alright, to finish up my wedge, I'm just going to take a dowel and I'm going to hot glue it into the hole. So put some hot glue in that hole, take my dowel, and the dowel goes in here. And now I'm at the point in the project where I've got to figure out where everything's going to go. Alright, so I've got my gumball machine here. We've got a screw, a wheel and axle, a lever, on a pulley, a lever with a wedge, and an inclined plane. So let's see if I can start on one side. So it's a dual sorter system, so I can go to the wheel and axle first. I'll reset that. And then I'm going to pull here, drop it in, push the wedge. So it did its wedge thing, and I dropped it out. So we got that. And let's see if I can find a gumball on the other side of my system. I don't know if I've got any left over there. Trying to find one. I got another one in this side of the system. Got another one on this side of the system. All my gumballs are on the one side. I got one. All right, so I'm going to drop it in here. Went down the screw. I'm going to pull it right like so. I'm going to push with the wedge, and there we go. So there's the two sides of my system, and obviously, if I wasn't specifically trying to grab the one, I would have just rolled through and done it as we're going. So this is just one example. It's very hard to cram all 6 simple machines in here, but it is possible. If you're only running the 3 simple machines, this is super simple, very easy to do, but this is with 6 simple machines.